Welcome to Simply Bitcoin, where we talk about the Bitcoin news, culture, meme reviews, fails, everything. It's a special edition. Phil is still setting up, so co-hosting with me today is Bitcoin Kindergarten, the legendary Optimus Fields, who just joined Simply Bitcoin, and Winekiss, who does the memes for Simply Bitcoin. This will be very special. Phil gets back tomorrow, and we'll get back to the usual episodes. This week we have an awesome guest lineup. Tomorrow we have the legendary Ben from BTC Sessions. Anyways, Opti, it's time for the numbers.
Number time!
Brought to you by Nodl. They make some of the best Bitcoin nodes, like the Nodl Dojo. It's in red. That means it's faster. Run your own version of Bitcoin Core and the Lightning Network, all in the comfort of your own home. Remember, guys, if you don't run your own Bitcoin node, you're trusting someone else's. That's a big no-no for privacy. Get yourself a Nodl today. At the time of this recording, the Bitcoin price is at $27,010. Sats per dollar, also known as Moscow time, 3,702. The market cap, 515 billion. It's so small. This Bitcoin's at a discount right now. Held in corporate treasuries, 1,660,000 Bitcoin. Block height, 740,541. Total Lightning Network capacity going up, 3,996 Bitcoin. The amount of reachable Bitcoin nodes, that number went down a little bit. It was at 16K last week. We're at 15,581. The numbers, Bitcoin took a little bit of a tumble, which means cheaper sats for you. And if you follow what we advocate on this show, don't trade what Odell always says, stay humble, stack sats, dollar cost average into Bitcoin, use Bitcoin as a savings vehicle because that's what it really is. Anyways, Opti, you are hosting the numbers today, bro. What do you have for us?
All right, guys. Well, I am back. It's Monday, and I'm here for the numbers. Before I go, though, Clark Moody, you need to update that Bitcoin or Lightning total channel capacity. It's above 4,000. We are over 4,000. Anyways, Nico, stop sharing.
I think he's using a different API. That's probably what it is.
Most of the other ones are saying already 4,000.
All right, well, if it's 4,000, that means we have the lightning effect. We'll save that for Phil tomorrow. All right, I like to make it come out of his ears. Anyways, what do you have today for us, Opti? What do you have? What do you have? What do you have? What do you have?
Here we go, guys. So, of course, guys, if you have not been living under a rock, you have found out this week that the May inflation rate is the highest it has been in a year since last year at 8.6%. This is the highest, as you can see right here, since December 1981, guys. So, as we've been telling you guys on the show for a while, the powers that be cannot hide the fact that inflation is decimating the world. And if this is the price or the ratio that they're giving you, just know that it's a lot higher than this, but that's not why we're here. I think this is super important because Nico hit me to this tweet by Tour de Meester, and I'm going to play this video for you guys. And if you see what it says here, this is a segment of Milton Friedman's Free to Choose, aired in 1980 when dollar inflation was at 13.5%. So, reminder, we have the highest inflation since December 1981. So 1 year after this is filmed. And as we always say, history doesn't rhyme, but it repeats. So watch Milton Friedman explain what inflation is, and then we will bring you up to speed into the future. So here we go for 1 minute.
The reason we have inflation in the United States, or for that matter anywhere in the world, is because these pieces of paper and the accompanying book entries, or their counterparts in other nations, are growing more rapidly than the quantity of goods and services produced. The truth is, inflation is made in one place and one place only, here in Washington. This is the only place where there are presses like this that turn out these pieces of paper we call money. This is a place where the power resides to determine how rapidly the amount of money shall increase. What happened to all that noise? That's what would happen to inflation if we stopped letting the amount of money grow so rapidly.
There is no way the government would allow anybody to go into a facility and do that today. But yeah, it's really important to remember what he says, because we're being gaslit to such crazy levels nowadays. The president held a press conference about taking control of inflation last week, and he was at the Los Angeles docks, and he blamed Trump supporters, he blamed Putin, he blamed everything, and put the politics aside. You guys know the joke, we're apolitical on this channel. And Trump would have done the same if he was in office, by the way. But the point is that the president, Joe Biden, blamed everybody else but the government, because the government is the only one that has the capacity and the legal authority to print more money, right? So you print more money, you add more money to the money supply, it makes everyone else's money is worthless, but they would like you to believe that it's not their fault. It's 100% their fault, which is what Milton Friedman so beautifully put. And I don't think they would allow him into a money printing facility to make the same argument today. It has to be the intellectual dark web, the internet, right? So that you can kind of get this truth out. Like, it's so ridiculous. Anyways, Opti, what is the next video?
Well, I'm glad that's exactly what you said, Nico, because as I said before that episode, history doesn't repeat, it rhymes. So if we go back a moment, we saw inflation is the highest since December 1981. This video of inflation by Milton Friedman in 1980. And let's go to the present time and see what politicians are saying about how inflation is happening and what are those causes. So again, here's the video, guys, just so we can get it on the record, and we'll show you what we're talking about.
I really doubt that we're going to see an inflationary cycle.
Most economic analysts believe that it will have a temporary or transitory impact.
The faster than expected increase in some of those prices is actually a good sign.
The overwhelming consensus is going to pop up a little bit and then go back down. No one's talking about this great,
This is something that will settle down.
Transitory.
And the data shows that most of the price increases we've seen were expected and are expected to be temporary. There's nobody suggesting there's unchecked inflation on the way. It's highly unlikely that it's going to be long-term inflation that's going to get out of hand. I don't know anybody who's worried about inflation.
Over the last couple of months, we actually saw it trended downward.
President Biden's chief of staff, Ron Klain, enthusiastically retweeted an economist who had said in part most of the economic problems we're facing, inflation, supply chains, etc., are high-class problems.
What is the Granholm plan to increase oil production in America?
Okay, pause it there, because that has to do with oil. We're not going to get into that.
Well, the end, I didn't want to play the whole thing, but the very end, there's just clips of them blaming inflation on supply chain issues and the quote-unquote Putin price hike. So, guys, I played those videos just to get it on record that, guys, history doesn't repeat, it rhymes. So, look, we have the highest inflation we've had since 1980s. We have one of the greatest renowned economists telling you the exact reason for inflation is because governments print money, and that any government will use any other excuse then but admit that the reason there is inflation is because they are printing money. And here we have it on record, your government officials, your unelected officials telling you exactly that same narrative. That is not because they printed money, it is because of all these other reasons like the supply chain issues, pandemic, oh sorry Nico, or the Putin price hike. Guys, we're saying all that just to show you guys on record the receipts that, guys, numbers are out of control and they can't hide it anymore. And we know the real reason. It's because they're printing money obscenely, or they did print money obscenely, and there is no tapering the Ponzi. Anyways, Nico, some more thoughts?
Dude, beautifully said, man. I look, the gaslighting. Okay, look, Biden, I give a pass. Psaki, I give a pass. They're bureaucrats, okay? But Janet Yellen, she knows damn well that if you print a lot of money, there will be inflation. She was the head of the Federal Reserve, right? So they're straight up lying to you. And this goes back to one of the things that Satoshi said, right? I think it was in the white paper, one of the Bitcoin Forum Talk.org posts, where he said that one of the problems with central banking is that you have to trust them not to debase the currency. And this is the fundamental issue here, is that you have to trust the government not to print more money. But they're human beings, right? They're going to follow their own incentives. I don't put a lot of blame in them. They're just doing what they think is best, right? I don't think it's malicious. I mean, some of it's malicious, of course, but I don't think like the majority of people that work in government are malicious. Look, let me ask you something. I'll pass it on to you guys. If you had an unlimited money printer and there was no consequence to you whether you printed more money, right? What would you do? You would print more money, obviously, right? This is the beauty of Bitcoin, right? Is that even if you have tremendous amount of political pressure behind you, even if you're the king, the president, the leader, the supreme leader, the emperor, it doesn't matter. If you want to make more Bitcoin, you have to spend the same amount of electricity as everybody else. Therefore, there's a cost, right? To acquire more Bitcoin. There is no printing. There's no money printer. There's no button that you could press that's just going to create Bitcoin out of nothing, of no cost to you. And that's the fundamental problem here. So yeah, look, if your money's not in Bitcoin, it's in dollars or the fiat currency in your country. And look, this is the United States, and your country, your politicians are doing the exact same thing, which is why all fiat currencies have inflation. They use inflation to pay for themselves, but you endure the cost. So not only do you have to pay income tax, property tax, you also have to pay the tax of inflation. And if you're not making 15%, because look, the amount that they say, it's 8.6%. We all know it's not 8.6%. It's really like 15-20%. If you look at the price of food, you look at the cost of energy in the last year, you really know that's a lot higher than 8.6, right? So the real number is around 15%, right? If your salary isn't 15% of what it was last year, you are making less than you were last year. And it wasn't the pandemic. It wasn't the supply chains. It was because your government printed too much money. Anyways, Weinicus, what are your thoughts on this, bro?
Well, I think we know exactly how this is going to play out. And I'm sick and tired of all the inflation going up every month. Like, obviously, it's just going to keep going. So wrap this shit up, U.S. government. Like, just fucking tank this shit and let Bitcoin come in and save the day, because we know that this is going to happen, and stop making us wait. But also, yeah, Bitcoin's at 27K. It's going to zero. So, man, it's been a fun ride, guys.
Yeah, Bitcoin's dead once again. When Bitcoin is dead, that is the best time to stack. That video is striking. This is why they want to censor the internet, right? This is why you hear Barack Obama going on, there's so much disinformation online. Yeah, because it's inconvenient, the fact that people are pointing it out, right? And again, this isn't a Democratic issue. The Republicans, when they're in office, what do? They print more money, right? So both parties do this. So yeah, Bitcoin really does fix this, but only if you choose to opt out, because no one is going to choose to opt out for you. You. But anyways, Opti, it's time for it.
The Daily News.
Brought to you by CryptoCloaks.com. They make some of the best 3D printed Bitcoin merch, like the famous 3D printed Bitcoin grenade toy. This one's in simply Bitcoin colors, but you want them in Peter Schiff colors? It comes in Peter Schiff colors. In fact, you can get it in any custom color your heart desires. Opens up, you put your favorite hardware wallet in there, or other fun stuff. Or you get the 3D printed Bitcoin Honey Badger. Also, a bunch of other cool 3D printed stuff. You can take advantage of the promo code down below to get 5% off anything off the CryptoCloaks.com online store. Alright everybody, if you are new to this channel, this will be new to you. But if you've been subscribed to this channel, this will not come as a surprise to you. Connect this what we were talking about during the inflation. Governments get a lot of their power from the ability to create money out of thin air, right? They're able to fund wars, they're able to fund social programs that they normally wouldn't be able to afford without raising taxes. If they raise too much taxes, they start a revolution because people don't want to pay for this. So inflation is this very sneaky way. Now, the problem for them is Bitcoin. Bitcoin is a hindrance to them because if enough people opt out of their system, they could print as much money as they want, but if nobody uses it, they can't really get away with it. So Bitcoin is a problem to governments, especially governments that have strong monetary systems, which is why you have countries like Panama, which is countries that you have the Central African Republic, like the country of El Salvador, that don't create their money, therefore they don't control their monetary policy, which is why they've been some of the first countries to adopt something like Bitcoin, right? If you don't control your own money, if you don't print your own money, you're not incentivized to not try something new, potentially something that is better, right? But in countries like the United States or places like the European Union that do benefit from the power of the money printer, Bitcoin is a problem to them. We've been covering the attacks on Bitcoin for very long. There's two principal attacks that you got to worry about. There's the attack on proof of work, the attack on mining. Proof of work is what keeps Bitcoin uncorruptible, right? Which is why governments are big advocates for something like proof of stake. They would like you to believe it's because of the environment. They would like you to believe it's because of the planet. I'll get to why that isn't in a little bit. But in reality, what we believe on Simply Bitcoin, it's because they can't control it. In a proof of stake system, if governments capture the stakers, right, they could implement an inflationary system or a system of which they can control, right? So attack number one is the attack on proof of work. Attack number two, which is an attack that, in my opinion, is a little bit more insidious, and it is an attack that I think is going to be a little bit more successful. It's the attack on self-custody. Most people that buy Bitcoin, they don't take self-custody of it. They buy it on Robinhood. They're like, dude, I own $200 worth of Bitcoin, and that's that. But the problem is that if you don't take self-custody, are you really buying Bitcoin? No, you're buying paper Bitcoin. Robinhood could tell you that you own $200 of Bitcoin, but there's no way for you to actually verify it unless you take self-custody, which is why we advocate for self-custody so strongly on the show. Self-custody is a little bit more daunting, right? Because you've been accustomed to the bank taking responsibility over the custody of your wealth. With Bitcoin, it's a radically different system. In my opinion, it's going backwards in a time where people used to hoard their wealth. In my opinion, that's a good thing. I think outsourcing the responsibility of the custody of your wealth leads to many bad things. It leads to dangerous situations, right? If, for example, the bank runs in the 1930s, right, during the Great Depression, if people custodied their wealth, then there wouldn't be a bank run because everyone would be holding their money. Now, with fiat, that's very difficult because think about it. Fine, if you're holding $200 worth of fiat, it's not that big of a problem. But if you're holding $100,000 worth of fiat, that's a big bag of just cash, right? There's security issues to that as well, right? So the point is, right, is that the self-custody aspect is a lot easier for governments to manipulate and a lot easier for governments to ban, because if you don't know enough about Bitcoin, from your perspective, governments aren't really banning Bitcoin because they don't have to. What they could do is they can make it very difficult for you to take self-custody of your Bitcoin. And the reasons that they're going to use, right, like the episode that we did in December, like that South Korean exchange, right, is that they're going to tell you that if you self-custody, and that gives you the ability to send to unknown wallets that don't have KYC. That's the point. That's the point, right? Their system is a system of exclusion, right? If you're in Korea, if you're in Cuba, or if you're in Africa, right, you're cut off from the traditional financial system. You can't use it. Especially like, for example, if you were in a country that the U.S. deems unbankable, like Russia, you're a Russian citizen. You're not responsible for what the Russian government did invading Ukraine, but you're still cut off from the financial system. What coin, what system could you still use? Bitcoin, right? So they know that. Right? And that is a reason that they're going to attack it. Again, you don't have to take my word for it. That's exactly what happened. Check this out from the Treasury the U.S. Department of Treasury website themselves. This is Wally Adeyemo. He is the Deputy Secretary of the Treasury, and these are his remarks at Consensus. Anyways, let's check out what he has to say. We are working to address the unique risks associated with unhosted wallets. Because unhosted wallets are effectively just addresses on a blockchain, it can be difficult to determine who really owns and controls them. That's a feature, not a bug. Creating opportunities to abuse this heightened anonymity. Fundamentally, financial institutions need to know who are they transacting and doing business with to make sure they are not making payments to criminals, sanctioned enemies, or others. When it comes to unhosted wallets, we are working to provide them the information they need to avoid facilitating these kinds of illicit payments. Okay, so let's actually look at the data, okay? Because they say, right, they talk a lot about these illicit activities, right? And I also want you guys to pay attention to the framing that they used, right? They used the word unhosted wallet. And it's really interesting how they use that wording, because to you, if you're reading that, it makes you think that that isn't the norm. The norm is a hosted wallet, right? Think about the wording that they're using. If you're a Bitcoiner, you know that there's no difference between a hosted Bitcoin address and an unhosted Bitcoin address. That is wording. That's a narrative that they're trying to use, right? Anyways, so let's look at the data, right? Because again, he's making it seem like this is a major problem. Criminals are going to use this. But if you look at the data, it tells a different story, right? Only 0.5% of the total crypto transactions volume is for illicit activities. The growth of legitimate cryptocurrency usage far outpaces the growth for criminal use. Last year, the illicit activity share of cryptocurrency transaction volume hit its lowest percentage ever. A recent report by Chain Analysis has revealed that the legitimate usage of cryptocurrencies far outweighs their illegal use. The report pointed out that only 0.15% of the total cryptocurrency transaction volume last year was for illicit activities. Chain Analysis said that the total transaction volume grew to 15.8 trillion in 2021, up 567% from 2020's total. The 0.15% recorded last year was the lowest ever. In 2019, the figure stood at 3.3%. While in 2020, it was 0.62. The reduction in the percentage of illicit transactions comes despite the cryptocurrency market experiencing massive adoption last year. Chain Analysis said the figure could rise as it continues to identify more addresses associated with illicit activity. For instance, 2020's initial figure was 0.34%, but it was later revised upwards 0.62% after discovering more illicit transactions during its research. So again, and if you compare that to fiat money, the fiat money number is around 3%. So it looks like crypto, Bitcoin, the thing that they're attacking so hard, right? The right to self-custody, the right to custody your wealth is not really being used for the things they say there's being used. And then, of course, you have Elizabeth Warren pouncing on the Russia narrative. She took advantage of that. We covered this on this episode, right? Where she took advantage of, you know, the conflict in Ukraine and how the narrative was being sold to the public that Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies could be used by people to circumvent Russian sanctions. But there's no evidence to point that. So if there's no evidence of increasing criminal activity, it's actually lower, and the criminal activity is actually higher in fiat, you have to ask yourself, why are they still pressuring so hard? Why are they so hell-bent on attacking it? Well, the answer is simple, right? Because they cannot control it. If they can't control it, they can't debase the currency, which they do with fiat. So again, this all has to do with power and control. Bitcoin is something that they can't control. Therefore, they must use any narrative possible, whether that is bad for the climate, it's used for criminal activity, to try to attack it. Now, here's the thing. In the latest Lummis bill, to give her credit, in the crypto bill, which we covered all last week, Opti and I did, she introduced legislation that would actually protect the right to self-custody. So why would she be introducing legislation that would protect someone's right to self-custody? Because clearly she's worried that if the government gets into a pickle, they might do exactly what they did back in the 1930s, where FDR made it illegal for US citizens to own gold, right? So what makes you think that it wouldn't be different with Bitcoin? If this legislation passes, it would actually protect the ability for US citizens to take self-custody, which is even crazier, right? If you think about how crazy the 6102 order was, it's illegal for you to own a naturally occurring metal. It's illegal for you to own numbers or a private key, because that's really what it is. Numbers and letters. That's the type of argument they're saying. Will numbers hurt you? No, it has nothing to do with that. It has to do with the fact that Bitcoin is a threat to the current nation state model, because a lot of the power that they get comes from their ability to manipulate monetary policy and their ability to control people through money, of which they print and they control. Bitcoin's a threat to that. It's a parallel system. It's a peer-to-peer system. So anyways, Opti, what are your thoughts on this? Take self-custody, guys. You don't want to be on the other side of this, where, let's say, God forbid, the U.S. government makes it illegal for U.S. citizens to own gold. For U.S. citizens to own Bitcoin, and you don't have your keys. That's very, very, very bad news for you. Anyways, Opti, what are your thoughts on this, brother?
Well, man, the framing, guys, the framing. Like, what even is an unhosted wallet, guys? Jesus Christ. This framing is absolutely bananas. But as Nico's saying, if you know what they're doing and you know the game plan, then you can see exactly where their attack is coming from. And, when Nico's talking, the framing I see from these politicians, from the powers that be, is that everyone is a criminal for not wanting to be a slave. So guys, this is what they think of you. They're scared, and we know it, and they know that we know it, and it's just the name of the game. It's like, it's a game of chicken, and we just gotta figure out who is the best marketer of the truth, which is obviously Bitcoin memers, because they don't have the truth on their side. So guys, they can continue to try to frame us as criminals for taking back our personal sovereignty that somehow got usurped from us. And if that makes us a criminal, then so be it. But we know what time it is. We know what we're doing here. We are taking back this freedom that they stole from us slowly, and it's terrifying them. And they're literally scared little chickens trying to figure out what's going on. But here we are, we're winning, and it's very obvious once you see it.
Yep, and take self-custody. Hopefully this Lummis bill passes. I don't know about that, and that will at least put it on paper that American citizens, at least, in Europe is a whole other cod. In Europe, in Lithuania, for example, they basically passed a law making it illegal to take self-custody. But at least in the U.S., it looks... I'm a little bit optimistic, right? Shout out to the Bitcoin Senator Cynthia Lummis. Anyways, Weinicus, what are your thoughts on this, bro? I mean, you are living the decentralized homelessness life, so all this noise doesn't really apply to you. It's signal to us, but to someone like you, not so much.
Yeah, I mean, Honey Badger don't care, right? Like, an unhosted wallet at the end of the day is you flipping a coin, 256 times? So I don't know. It's just a matter of them trying to create the vocabulary for this new idea that people have yet to understand. And I think an unhosted wallet is for people that have unhosted thoughts and actions. So just make sure that you don't let these people tell you what to do or think. And also, going back to that whole illicit activity thing with the 0.15%, I don't know how they're exactly measuring that. So I don't know what they quantify as a illicit activity or any of those things, but it seems like it's all another kind of BS idea where who knows what type of illicit activity is happening with dollars, right? I don't know, how do they measure if somebody's going to buy some drugs on the street, if that's considered an illicit activity?
I think it's so chain analysis is actually pretty good at what they do. So but it's actually what you said, Weinicus, right? Chain analysis actually gives because of how Bitcoin is architected, it's an open blockchain. You could actually just take a look at the transactions. So I think it's a lot easier to audit compared to fiat or like cash, right? So if governments really were concerned about the traceability aspect of it, they should be advocating for Bitcoin, not fighting against it.
My point is, they determine what's illicit to begin with anyway, so it shouldn't really even matter. And I don't know, when you look up like the biggest fraud cases in history and money laundering cases, it's these banks like HSBC and all these other guys who are doing illicit things at a way bigger scale. I mean, inflation is the biggest illicit activity that can possibly exist. So you could say that majority of the US dollar activity is through illicit activity. So like, I don't know, it's all just BS, and it's a matter of framing the narrative in a certain way, like Optimus said, trying to create terminology, and you really have to be able to have the right signal to determine what's the truth and not. And with time, you figure it out. But yeah, these people are just liars, and just flip a coin 256 times and you're part of the Bitcoin network pretty much.
Absolutely. But yeah, dude, it's total BS. But anyways, let's check this out. So I said at the beginning, right, there's two main attacks, right? There is the attack on the right to self-custody, which we're going to stay on top of, so you guys know what's happening, right? And then the attack on proof of work mining. The attack on proof of work mining, in my opinion, is something that we're going to win because the incentives are way too powerful. The self-custody aspect, I think that it's a lot easier for them to manipulate because a lot of people, right, don't take self-custody of their Bitcoin. They leave it on Coinbase. They leave it on Robinhood, right? So I think the proof of work the attack is ridiculous, but it doesn't mean they're not going to try, right? So in the latest of this attack, right, we have the World Economic Forum, we have New York State, we have left-wing parties in Europe, we have a left-wing party in Norway, Communist Party of Norway. They also tried to ban proof of work mining. Now, this is funny because this is like the horse and buggy people trying to ban cars, right? Or trying to ban gasoline, because it's so ridiculous. Swedish central bank says Bitcoin mining should be banned. Like, of course, it makes you irrelevant. Why wouldn't you say that? The oldest central bank in the world, the Swedish central bank, published a report saying that the energy-intensive Bitcoin and cryptocurrency mining should be prohibited. Also known as Riksbank, the Swedish central bank, in the report titled "Cryptocurrencies and Their Impact on Financial Stability." I want to write a report that says fiat and its impact on financial stability, but they're not going to publish that. Proof of Work criticized crypto mining, according to the reports. An extraction of cryptocurrencies recently set up in northern Sweden consumes energy equivalent to that consumed by 200,000 households on an annual basis. Now, again, that is bad framing. That is framing. Let me explain to you why this is framing. Okay, so electricity doesn't work that way. Like, electricity isn't just made and then it can be transported anywhere around the world. Like, that's not how it works. And the reason that it's in northern Sweden is because it's an isolated energy pocket. Because it's an isolated energy pocket, it's too expensive to transport over long distances. In fact, you lose energy if you transport over long distances. If you transport over wires, over a certain amount of miles, that starts to lose the percentage of electricity that gets to the other side. Okay, so that's number one. There's no good effective way of storing. Battery technology isn't there, right? So what happens? You have to use it on site, which is why we call it stranded energy pockets or stranded energy. So if you have to use it on site, basic supply and demand, right? If there's a lot of supply, but there's little demand, prices are going to be low, which is what incentivizes Bitcoin miners. If you live in a big city and there's a big energy producing thing next to you, prices are going to be high. There's a lot of demand, but there's not that much supply. If electricity prices are high, it doesn't make sense for you to mine Bitcoin there because you're going to be priced out by a Bitcoin miner that has cheaper electricity than you do. So again, framing, right? It's the same framing that they used with this BS, unhosted wallets. They're using framing here when they use 200,000 households on an annual basis. It's not getting into the nuance of it. Now, shout out to Newt. According to Newt Swanholm, he's came on the show, author of Infinity Divided by 21 Million, the central bank has no right to instruct people on how they should or shouldn't utilize their electricity. Swanholm further argues that if the government was really concerned about the environment, it should halt all operations forever tomorrow morning. Shout out, Newt. Anyways, moving on. So, really interesting, because if they can't ban proof of work outright, what some politicians have figured out is that we could just tax them. And this is exactly what they're doing in Washington State. Washington State is a very popular Bitcoin mining center or state because, again, there's isolated energy pockets. Specifically, they come from renewable energy. But it doesn't matter that they come from renewable energy. These people don't care that it comes from renewable energy. What they care about is what you can and what you can't use that energy for. As Bitcoin mining operations require more high degree of electricity than any other consumers, country public utility district commissioners have approved a bill this week to charge Bitcoin miners in Chelan County, Washington, with increased rates for electricity. As per the report of 560KPQ on June 8th, the approved bill implies around a 29% increase in electricity rates. This move has actually moved the mining companies from the usual charging schedule of high density to a newly created schedule known as Rate 36, especially for cryptocurrency miners. Now, what caught my attention of this article, and I would have treated it as noise, is that this is exactly what they tried to do in Norway. Now, the reason I feel so confident in telling you guys that these people don't really care about the environment is because of the example in Norway. In Norway, specifically Bitcoin mining, 100% of it comes from renewable energy. But the Communist Party of Norway, specifically let me get into the Socialist Left Party, the Red Party, and the Green Party would still want to ban Bitcoin mining. But I thought it was about the environment. If 100% of the energy comes from renewable resources, it's clean, but you still want to ban it, what's going on here? The same reason that the Central Bank of Sweden doesn't give two flying fucks about the mining in North Sweden. What they care about is the fact that Bitcoin takes power away from them. That's what they really care about. Norway now contributes as much as 1% to the global Bitcoin hash rate, taking advantage of 100% renewable energy in the land of the midnight sun. And here's the signal, guys. By implementing a higher power tax rate specifically for miners or even attempting to ban mining. The ban mining didn't work. So what did those parties in Sweden do? They're trying to tax it now. Very similar to what politicians in the state of Washington are doing. So again, couple thoughts here, right? What about hair dryers? What about refrigerators? What about those appliances that you just leave on 24/7 throughout the year and you just forgot that they were on? What about them? Why is that not into the discussion? Because that's not in the discussion. They are basically saying that Bitcoin mining is not a proper use of electricity. That is what they're trying to make the argument for. You don't get to make your own decisions on what you could use the electricity that you paid for. No. We are saying that that's not a good use of electricity. Since when? Have you ever heard the Central Bank of Sweden say hair dryers aren't a good use of electricity? This is the most inclusive monetary network the world has ever seen. This gives people in Cuba, Afghanistan, Nigeria, Venezuela a fighting shot. It gives them access to a financial network where before they have none. So to me, to them, it probably looks like Bitcoin has utility. But to the Central Bank of Sweden, someone who has all to lose if Bitcoin wins? To them, no, apparently Bitcoin isn't a good use of electricity. So it's not coming from it's not coming from a place of caring for the planet. I care for the planet. I think that Bitcoin is going to facilitate and incentivize the development of green energy because it actually makes it profitable. But they're not arguing from that position. They're arguing from a position of, we can't control this. We can't inflate this. We can't debase this. Therefore, we think that is not a good use of electricity. And if we can't ban it, we're going to tax it. Absolutely crazy. But out of the two attacks, right, the right to self-custody and the Bitcoin mining, I think this is the lesser attack. I think that this is the attack that they're making a lot more noise on. But they have a much bigger uphill battle because, again, like I always say, the incentives of Bitcoin are much stronger than their coercive measures, right? The profit incentive that Bitcoin mining creates is very strong. So that's an uphill battle for them. But the right to self-custody, again, they could be a lot more manipulative with that because it's not a direct attack. They'd say, look, you could still buy Bitcoin on your Robinhood app. You just can't take it to an unhosted wallet. If you don't know about Bitcoin, to you, you're just like, oh, that's not that big of a deal. I could still buy Bitcoin. But it is a big deal because you don't know what you're buying paper Bitcoin. You don't know whether you've actually bought Bitcoin on the exchange until you have that Bitcoin in your address to which you only own the private key to. So anyways, these are the two attacks. It's going to ramp up over the years. I'm calling it. We've been calling this correctly. We were the first ones to call out the self-custody issue about a year ago. We were the first to pick up the insidious attacks on proof of work. So I continue to believe this is going to intensify as time progresses. Anyways, Optimus Fields, what are your thoughts on this, bro?
That was now listen, that's called bars moment. But you reminded me of when David Zell came on Simply Bitcoin last week and just straight murdered all the mining FUD. And he had like a fundamental axiom where he says, essentially, like, if Bitcoin mining is useless, then no amount of energy use is warranted. And if that was the angle that they would go with, then we could essentially debate the argument of whether Bitcoin mining uses too much energy. But Nico is 100% right when this isn't the framing they're going for. They're literally, you know, blatantly saying, oh, you can't use energy because we want to control you. Obviously not in those words, but that's what they are saying. So guys, this is all a ploy to control you because, like Nico's saying, no one cares about your washing machines or your Christmas lights or whatever, your hair dryers. No one asks about the energy use or the energy consumption of those goods because there is a fundamental use value there for humans. And again, these people are not framing it this way. We know the use case of Bitcoin, censorship-resistant money, hedge on inflation, only 21 million Bitcoin. Of course, these people are not going to see the use case of that and therefore not legitimize its quote-unquote energy use. So guys, the fundamental framing is off, and we know that this is the full frontal attack of Bitcoin is by banning Bitcoin mining or making proof of work look evil or making Bitcoiners be criminals. Like, we already know what the frontal attack is, and this is what it is, guys. This is the then they fight you stage, and Nico and Phil have been covering it for years now. Like, it's not a secret anymore. It's not conspiracy. It's literal fact, guys.
Weinicus, what are your thoughts on this, my friend?
I mean, I saw how they framed it, that it uses the same energy as 200,000 households in Sweden or something like that. And the one thing to note that Bitcoin mining does not compete for the same energy that households are competing. Like, it is not buying the same type of energy that you as a household consumer is not purchasing. It uses wasted energy or stranded energy. So it's not even in this, it shouldn't even be in the same discussion of energy usage, number one. It has nothing to do with the way people are consuming energy. So just that alone is just a complete misunderstanding. Bitcoin is the buyer of last resort when it comes to energy. So the whole energy discussion, either somebody's being completely dishonest or just misinformed. So
I would like to believe that it was insidious because all the reports that Nick Carter or all these things sent to them, they continue to use the talking point of Bitcoin uses more energy than the country of Denmark. They ignore the reports, right? The nuance. They don't get into the nuance. It doesn't matter, right? So it makes you question what is really their goal here, right? Because they read the reports. They're not stupid, okay? But when you start hearing the same wording, the same talking points from the World Economic Forum, from these politicians in Europe, the cleaning up cryptocurrency panel in Congress, and they're using the same wording, proof of work bad, proof of stake good. Proof of stake coincidentally is something they can control and manipulate, right? Like it's not rocket science. You get to the conclusion. It's obviously because they can't control it. You can't go to another conclusion. And the smoking gun is Norway. 100% of Bitcoin mining in Norway comes from renewable energy sources. But they still have a problem with it. That's the signal right there. But anyways, Opti, it's time for
the Daily Meme Review.
Brought to you by Citadel 21. It's the best Bitcoin cultural zine. It's stories, articles, comics by actual Bitcoiners. Pure pleb signal in this zine. Every volume has different artwork. This is the artwork for volume 10. This is the artwork for volume 11. And this is the artwork for volume 2. Volume 2 is almost sold out. Volume 1 is sold out because they're scarce. There's only 1,000 copies made per volume. We got your prints of Citadel 21 today before they run out. All right, everybody, welcome to the Bitcoin Meme Review, where we review Bitcoin memes. Memes play an essential role, not only in Bitcoin culture, but in this narrative trench warfare that we're fighting hand to hand, on the battlegrounds of the internet. Anyways, first meme is brought to us by Death on the Stairs. Interesting name. Just bought some more Bitcoin because I love future me. I like that. See, I think it was American Hodl that says this. You need to love yourself to buy Bitcoin because you need to be optimistic about the future. If you're nihilistic about the future, you're going to hate Bitcoin. That's some fiat thinking right there. The Bitcoin allocation in your portfolio reflects your level of understanding. Level 1, Level 2, Level 3. Allocation, knowledge. Absolutely accurate. This is what the bear market, a lot of you guys are going to come to this channel and understand what we're talking about. This is absolutely hilarious. I actually spit on my screen because of how funny I found this. I say, sir, hand over your Bitcoin, goest and fucketh thyself. And he's holding a fucking cold card. That's so funny. All right, Eric.eth, a shitcoiner, but he still makes good memes. U.S. government prints 5 trillion. Fucking Putin. This is what we were talking about in the beginning, right? With this record level inflation, highest in 40 years. And they're blaming Putin, and it's not, the record amount of money printing. Anyways, by Dan Osmar. Oh, you don't need to fight them. You just need to convince the pitchfork people that the torch people want to take away their pitchforks. It's absolutely true. Divide and conquer. Next one by Hodl Never Soddle. Great name. Amateur looters. Professional looters. So accurate. So freaking accurate. Some evil right there in this picture. Some evil. Okay, anyways, moving on. Good morning, psychopaths. Merc Hodl, Fiat, Bitcoin psychopath. And this is the Central Bank of Sweden. And all these politicians, they're freaking out. And Bitcoin is tearing down the freedom door. Absolutely awesome memes. And for those awesome memes, I'm going to give it a very special score of back at my studio. No more shitty hotel room. Back at my studio. That's my meme score. Anyways, Winekiss, what would you give those memes?
They were all pretty good, and I'm gonna have to shamelessly plug my shills here. Bitcoin kindergarten pin. Nico just happens to be a guest on a Bitcoin kindergarten Simply Bitcoin takeover right now. So shout out BTC pins. I give it this score. If you have one of these, you're part of the few.
Part of the few. I think I gave mine away to Greg's son. So shout out Greg's son. You have a BTC kindergarten pin on your bag.
I got you another one. If there aren't any.
I appreciate that. Opti, what would you give those memes?
All right. Awesome meme, guys. I really, really loved the first one because I love future me a lot as well. Hence the name Optimus Fields. Anyways, guys, I got this unplugged Raspberry Blitz node, Raspberry Pi 4 node. It's unplugged right now. I'll get it back up and running. So good stuff, guys.
Very good scores for some awesome memes. Anyways, guys, we want to know if you agree with our scores, you disagree. Let us know down in the comment section. Comment. Make sure to join our awesome Telegram group. It's a party in there. The link is down below in the link description. And, of course, make sure to subscribe to us on alternative video platforms like Rumble.com and our personal favorite, BitcoinTV.com. They don't censor there because it's Bitcoin TV. But anyways, Opti, it's time for
The Daily Fail.
Brought to you by Swan. Check them out, swanbitcoin.com. That's right. It's the best way to build your Bitcoin stack with automated savings plans and instant purchases. I'll do it again, Nico. That's right. It is a Bitcoin stacking platform by fellow plebs. Check them out. They're going to have an app soon. The link is down below.
All right. What's up, guys? I am filling in for Phil on the Daily Fail today. He will be back tomorrow. But without further ado, like we say every week, somehow Nico and I and Phil are in sync on what we are going to talk about. So Nico just walk you through what we all considered to be the frontal attack on Bitcoin mining, the all-out overt acknowledgement that Bitcoin is the superior form of money and that they have to FUD it because, proof of work mining is using too much energy. Well, I think I found the same FUD attack, but it's not the frontal attack. I like to call this the roundabout way to FUD Bitcoin mining. So I saw this article on The Guardian by our friend, or not so friendly, John Naughton. Look, he's so friendly. And the title is, "As energy prices soar, the Bitcoin miners may find they have struck fool's gold." So guys, this fail compromises the fact that legacy media does not understand how Bitcoin mining works, and they are tasked to write about it. So I'm going to show you some inaccuracies in what they're talking about and further prove the point that Nico was making, that these people know what they're talking about. They just refuse to acknowledge the truth. So anyways, let me get into this. Let me read a few of these quotes and stuff. So as he goes, "The rising price of electricity and the plunging value of Bitcoin and shitcoin could burst a speculative bubble for today's prospectors." So he goes into this article, and at first they try to correlate this with gold mining and the fact that it involved hysterical crowds and pickaxes, digging and staking claims and so on. And of course, doing a nice little framing about the California gold rush involving the massacre of thousands of indigenous people. So this is the first paragraph. This is the framing people that we got to deal with. Anyways, in our day, the new gold is Bitcoin, and prospecting for it has become a genteel armchair activity, although it's called mining. Guys, I literally had to Google what genteel was so that I can give you the signal. And again, guys, remember what I told you about the framing in Bitcoin mining and Bitcoin in general about how it's only for the rich white man. Well, look at what genteel is. Refined or polite, typical or characteristic of the upper class, elegantly stylish or fashionable. So again, understand where the framing is going. So here is the first fail. This is where he tries to break down in TLDR what Bitcoin mining is. And so what it actually involves is using computers to perform unfathomably complicated calculations to create cryptographic hashes, codes that are in practical terms uncrackable. So guys, fundamentally that Bitcoin mining isn't performing unfathomably complicated calculations. They're literally just spitting out a lot of numbers at an insane speed that we can't even imagine. So first fail, they don't even understand how mining works. So let's go down into this article. Again, sounds intimidating, but in reality, anyone can play. So they're right on this aspect. But look at the framing. These gizmos are readily available. And again, They kind of understand what's going on here, talking about the terahashes. Again, they're wrong. 95 trillion calculations every second. Again, it's not calculations, it's just spitting out numbers.
It's guessing. It's guessing.
Yeah, it's guessing numbers, guys. Again, here's another fail. They're literally linking to data talking about the mining subsidy. And so for every block that a miner is able to validate, they are rewarded with a number, currently 6.3 of new Bitcoins. Guys, if you know the monetary policy of Bitcoin, you know it's not 6.3. It's 6.25, so close, but no cigar. So again, they're here with the task of informing the normies about Bitcoin, and they aren't even getting the data correctly. Anyways, the crux of this information is the fact that the price is crashing, and that, you know, the Bitcoin mining gold rush is similar to California because America started it, and then the rest of the world came on. And look, America is leading Bitcoin mining with 37% of global hash. And then China follows, and Kazakhstan follows, and Canada and Russia. Again, the framing is only rich white men will be the Bitcoin miners. So Bitcoin mining has become a global phenomenon. And while this is kind of the signal here, but this is their framing. While most miners are now industrial scale operations and looking like data centers run by Google, you know, the small miners are getting pushed out of the market. Again, guys, this is a feature and not a bug. So here, this is the crux of this whole article. For many operators, Bitcoin mining has up to now been an astonishingly lucrative activity, but suddenly things have changed. First, the price has crashed, and second, electricity prices have soared. So guys, they fundamentally wrote a whole article not understanding about the difficulty adjustment and that small miners getting pushed off the network is a feature and not a bug. This is capitalism. You need to be the best miner to continue to be a miner. Anyways, they this article, as Nico said, they are referencing like the good works of all the Bitcoiners out there, and they are still messing it up. So right here, he's got this link right here. Bitcoin consumes about 110 terawatt hours per year, and it literally links to a Nick Carter article about how much energy does Bitcoin actually consume. And if you go down in the article, read the whole article, there's a lot of points of contention here where this guy John, I forgot his name is, Naughton, should have understand what's going on with the Bitcoin network. So of course this isn't about carbon emissions, but this point right here, there's an important distinction between how much energy in a system consume and how much carbon it emits. So their framing of Bitcoin using energy is bad, Bitcoin ruining the environment, etc., etc. But Bitcoin can use energy that other industries can't, which is what Nico and Weinickus have been telling you, that Bitcoin goes to energy. It doesn't take energy from other use cases. So again, Bitcoin is the most green, energy efficient industry, period. But Bitcoin, let's see, all the energy of the world used worldwide must be produced relatively close to its end users, but Bitcoin has no such limitation. We already went over this. But right here, look, there is no way to get around the fact that Bitcoin mining uses energy. It's a feature, not a bug. But the distinction to most of these articles is their misunderstanding that most of the energy use is during the mining process and not the fact that Bitcoin doesn't use that much energy doing transactions. We already know that this is FUD. So it's not going to be runaway growth, and Bitcoin is not going to take over the whole world of electrical use. And furthermore, it probably should. We should secure the best money in the world with more electricity. But again, they are linking articles with little understanding of how Bitcoin works. So guys, this whole article is another one that they're linking about how the fact that, you know, the price is crashing, electricity is going up, and miners aren't making as much profits. And it's, guys, this is a feature, not a bug. Again, here is the schedule where we're at. We are currently in the fourth epoch, 6.25 Bitcoin mined per block, and that will continue to get cut in half. So guys, I say all that to say, look, they can FUD the network all they want. They can continue to confuse the normies, but we know the plan and the game. Look, hash rate continues to go up. They can cry harder. Bitcoin is the most efficient market and industry on planet Earth, and there's nothing they can do about it because Bitcoiners will find the most efficient energy and continue to find the most efficient energy. And furthermore, guys, as the hash rate goes up, the difficulty adjustments goes up. So, hey, if inefficient miners get pushed off the network, so be it. This is a feature, not a bug. So, John, as energy prices soar, the Bitcoin miners may find that they are not efficient and they need to unplug their miners, but Bitcoin network is still pumping out blocks, still the use case we need it to be. So guys, again, another normie just completely failing at his duties of reporting the truth to you guys. Like, they're literally linking to Nick Carter's article on Bitcoin mining, and they still can't give you the truth. Again, like what Nico is saying, they don't care about the truth. They just want to control you and the narrative. It's all about framing. And like I said in the beginning, what Nico told you earlier is a more frontal attack on Bitcoin mining. They're going to tell you it's bad, it's ruining the environment, yada, yada, yada. But these are the roundabout ways that they attack Bitcoin. Obviously, it's a fail because we can see through the narrative, but they're going to essentially FUD the normie from participating in sovereign money any way they can. So, guys, yes, Bitcoin uses energy, but it doesn't use energy that other humans would need or be using. It's just the way it is, guys. Bitcoin taps into stranded energy, and man, they are crying harder than ever. Nico, I do have another fail in here that we can go into, but first, let's talk about this. It's amazing that we are in sync like this and we can talk about the frontal attack of Bitcoin and the behind roundabout way of how they are attacking Bitcoin mining. And man, it's just beautiful to see them cry and screech, and just knowing the facts that they're just so misrepresenting. It's laughable. It really is laughable. And it's amazing that the normies can't see how obvious these fails are. Like, the fact that we have to cover this and break it down is quite amazing, but we wouldn't have a show, so we do it every single day. Anyways, Nico, jump in. What's your thought?
Yeah, dude. Look, another social attack on Bitcoin. This is what that is. You know, it's another propaganda hit piece. Comes from, you know, a large legacy media outlet. It's always the same. Like, even again, like I said it, like even with the Nick Carter reports, right, that he's referencing. If you look into the Nick Carter reports, the nuance, again, the nuance isn't important. They would like you to believe that Bitcoin energy usage is bad. It's going to use energy that everyone else is using. It's going to boil the oceans, going to burn the planet. It's not sincere. Yes, Bitcoin uses a lot of energy. We know that. But what kind of energy does Bitcoin use, right? It uses stranded energy, because if it wasn't stranded, then it would be too expensive for the Bitcoin miner, right? And what you said earlier, yes, I hope Bitcoin uses more and more energy, because it's going to make energy. Think about it. If you're a village in Africa and you have an isolated energy pocket, that energy was worthless before. Now Bitcoin incentivizes miners there, and that could potentially become a new source of income for your village. That's not being talked about. Or, for example, all those solar panels in the United States, right? Those have to be subsidized by the government because they wouldn't be profitable. Because the majority of energy used, right, throughout the day is at night when people get home, right? During the day, the energy usage actually goes down. So what about solar? Most of the energy, if the sun is out, is actually during the day, right? So it's a totally different peaks, right? Bitcoin is that buyer of last resort, right? That Optimus was saying. Or, for example, if you're extracting natural gas and you have too much gas, with the old ways you would burn that gas, right? Now with Bitcoin mining, you could turn that excess gas into sats, right? You could make that to power your mine, right? Of course, this isn't talked about. It isn't talked about because it doesn't fit the narrative. The narrative is, and what they work so hard at doing, all the legacy media outlets like The Guardian, like the New York Times, they would like you to believe that Bitcoin is a bad thing. Bitcoin is horrible. It just uses too much energy. I heard Bill Mayer go on Ben Shapiro, and that's something he said. He's like, all these young people, they like Bitcoin, but Bitcoin uses all this energy. It doesn't go into the nuance. And again, that is because of the propaganda. That is because of articles like that. That is the function of these articles. Because if you're the normie, and you're just reading, you're just whatever, you're not going to get into the nuance. You're not going to be watching Simply Bitcoin, even though you should be. You're just going to read that article and you're going to take it as fact, right? Of like, oh my God, yeah, Bitcoin uses that much energy, but it doesn't get into the nuance of what energy was that, right? So it's just, man, it's stupid, but we're going to keep debunking it. Anyways, Weinicus, what are your thoughts?
Can we go back to that John article? Yeah, can we zoom into John?
I was about to say that.
Can we just keep zooming in? Yeah, like let's get a little closer to John. Yeah, John, cry harder. Honestly, that's it. That's all. Look at this guy. This guy thinks his opinion is relevant. Like, just keep zooming in. Just zoom in a little more.
That's as far as it'll go for me.
Just cry hard. This guy is gonna tell you what to think. So he's hosting your thoughts for you. So have fun staying poor, John.
Have fun staying poor. Anyways, Opti, there was an open source software release today. Why don't you tell everybody about it?
Software releases.
Brought to you by CipherSafe. Check them out, cyphersafe.io. Paper is dead. Store your seed in the Cypher Wheel or the all-new Cypher Grid. They both come with a tamper-resistant wire, and the grid comes with a punch tool.
All right, guys. So software release for today is LND version 0.15.0 beta RC4 released today.
Awesome. Thank you, Optimus. All right, guys, that was our show. Before we go, I want to give a very special shout out to our clothing sponsor, RepresentLTD.com. I'm wearing the Bitcoin merch. That's right. It's a Bitcoin guy with an AK-47. He also has some awesome other Bitcoin merch as well. Simply Bitcoin merch coming soon. And you can take advantage of the promo code down below to get 10% off anything off the RepresentLTD.com online store. I also want to give a very special shout out to our awesome guest, the legendary Weinicus. You can give him a follow on Twitter at Weinicus. And of course, a new member of Simply Bitcoin and also the host of Bitcoin Kindergarten, the legendary Optimus Fields. You can give him a follow on Twitter at MyLivinTruth. Anyways, guys, that was our show. Phil gets back tomorrow. We have the legendary BTC Sessions as a guest. If you guys enjoyed the show, share it. That's what YouTube likes nowadays. The algorithm changed a little bit. So the number one thing you could do to help us is share this video. Share any of our videos. Guys, that was our show. If you enjoyed the show and you know what to do, smash that like button. And of course, you want to continue hearing the Bitcoin news from the pleb perspective and the catastrophic fails from the same perspective, the best perspective. Definitely consider subscribing to Simply Bitcoin. And we'll see you tomorrow, guys, for a brand new episode.
You're here to milk the scene. You're a thirsty bitch.